My name is Ray Ducharme. Many of you have known me from, I started in the business in 1978, so I'm still kind of a rookie, but trying to find my way in the cabinet business. We have an agency called Rave Reps. We cover the 6 New England states and upstate New York for a number of cabinet lines and some other products. Just for those who are our dealers, I'll give you a very brief status that Woodland is operating on a normal schedule for both production and office. The office staff has moved off-site because it's a very small space, and there are like 30 people in a small space, so they're all working remotely from home, and it's been going on since last week. So it's working very, very well. Marsh is still working on a slightly amended schedule. They're 2 days behind schedule, but the trucks are still delivering the same week. River Run is delivering on time and complete with no delays. So that's the major news. All of the companies are encouraging the workers, nobody who feels sick, to come in. Wearing masks if they're comfortable, if they need to, if they're near people, and everyone's getting multiple temperature checks during the course of the day. So it's doing whatever things that they're able to do to keep people healthy and working, and I'm sure we all appreciate that. And we just do ask that if you are have an issue with deliveries, that you inform us as early as possible, so that we can catch it before they have to. There is no real storage space for the cabinetry at the manufacturing facilities, so we have to make alternative arrangements. So that's the public service announcement. Thank you very much. Today we're doing something. This is our 5th Zoom meeting that we've done. So it's very exciting for us. They've continued to grow with participants. So it's pretty cool. We have tried to bring some pertinent information to helping folks, whether it's a way to go chase leads, a way to use your website more effectively, looking at different types of tools that we've started to work on and design for how to give to your clients, how to prepare for a kitchen remodel or without going crazy, or a planning guide that we've seen a lot of manufacturers put together design planning guides that were 3 or 4 pages long with graph paper. We did one based on some experience with Doug that's actually 14 pages long, and it's quite extensive. So we're pretty happy with that. It certainly will help getting customers involved in what they're doing, in working with you, working with all the designers. So that's basically where we are with this. We're very happy today to have Colin O'Neill with us. Colin and Doug and I have been acquaintances and friends for probably 12 or 15 years, and we're very, very happy to have him on board. Colin, if you don't know, has been a presenter last year at the Kitchen and Bath Show for 2020. He's got a lot of clever ideas. He has a following, and I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit more about it. But I think, Colin, if I'm not wrong, 1,400 people on your Facebook page?
Almost 1,450, yep.
Wow, I wish I was that popular. No,
it's not me. It's not you. It's definitely not me.
All right. Well, we'll see about that. So I'm not going to take up any more time. I thank you for thanks, Colin, for being with us, folks. If you have questions, there is on Zoom a way that you can type in your questions that Colin will be able to see them, or at certain breaks in time you can unswitch from mute and ask the questions. But I think we'll have some time at the end of it, and we are going to try to end promptly at 1 o'clock. So thanks again, and Colin, take it away.
All right, thanks, Ray. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Ray and Doug, for inviting me to be here. I do, as you said, I have a Facebook group. I have I have a passion for helping people in their design careers, in both design, in their business, in 2020. But my passion really lies in 2020, as Darby can probably attest. So what we're talking about today is how to protect your design when you're presenting online. Of course, this is a new normal for many people, but this is a relatively old normal for me. I've been doing presenting online in different ways, shapes, and forms for almost a year and a half. So I'm pretty familiar with Zoom. I'm pretty familiar with the ins and outs. So it's a platform I really enjoy. My daughters are in online school, and everything is done through Zoom with their instructors. So it's very much a part of my life. So I enjoy sharing the benefits of it and how to sort of navigate it. It's gotten a lot of negative press lately, as you know, negative press is probably redundant, but the people are finding that there are security issues and things like that. I don't share any state secrets. I'm not the slightest bit worried about my security, as far as people being able to see my content. So that doesn't really bother me. I just kind of ignore that. But when you're sharing your material, your designs, they are your designs. They don't belong to anybody else until they pay you money, whether that be as a deposit on a complete project or on cabinets, whether it be a design retainer or a design fee. You own that property. So that is actually called intellectual property. Intellectual property is a noun. It pertains to law, and it's a work or invention that is the result of creativity, such as a manuscript or a design, to which one has rights and for which one may apply for a patent, copyright, trademark, etc. It's yours. It's your intellectual property. But intellectual property is complicated, and unless you have things like watermarks on your, like if you give perspectives to people, you have ways of being able to put watermarks on them so it can be proven that it's yours. Things like that, what's called metadata in photos. There's a lot of things that we could get into, but it's sometimes hard to prove. So, you know, if you're not careful, you can end up like this guy. This guy basically just found out that his design was on Houzz, but he didn't sell it. This is actually something that I have heard happen to at least one other person. And it was a story where they had presented a design to their contractor and their contractor's client, and then they disappeared. They were not able to get in touch with them again. So about 6 months later, they were looking through Houzz, and on their contractor's page was their design. So these things do happen. They are not, it's not impossible to take a design and replicate it. So even when we sit together in an office setting, something like where we're sitting across from each other or next to each other, you have, they had the ability to take out their camera phone a few steps away, but this is before social distancing. Now, of course, the people in the first photo are at least 6 feet apart. Now you have to excuse me. This is my office cat. If you see his head pop into the picture, that would be Stevie. So this is real life. But so when we're presenting together in a space that is not social distancing, even in the example where the folks are a few feet apart, it's not unusual to have to touch things like samples and what have you. So that makes it dangerous. So as a result, this is the new normal. This is how we communicate now. My wife actually turns 50 tomorrow, and she has no way of getting together with friends and family to celebrate. I'm sorry, 51. She was 50. She'd thank me for that. But anyway, she turns 51 tomorrow, and she has no way of getting together with people. So her best friend has arranged a Zoom party where about 30 people are getting on a Zoom call, and it's a surprise party. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because we did a surprise party for her 40th, and of course that's not possible in person now, but it should be interesting to see how the Zoom surprise party goes. So this is what we're looking at. So some ways that you can protect your intellectual property. You can give a strongly worded disclaimer. I believe a certain percentage of people will respond to just a friendly verbal warning. Guilt kicks in. People don't want to be seen as a thief or what have you. So they will, you know, if you word it properly, they won't try and take it from you. Not maybe a huge percentage of the people, but you know, a percentage of the people. So just a nice friendly warning, something that just gives some light conversation about how, you know, it's yours and they really shouldn't be using it. You know, so just some friendly verbiage that, you know, lets people know that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. But that's okay, because everything is always better with a smiley face. So that, I think, could be effective for some people, but maybe not a huge percentage. So the next thing that you could do is you could hide the details of your design. So if you're using design software like 2020 or Pro Kitchen, and you want to have the design on the screen, you're doing some interactive design with the client, and you want to be able to hide what it is you're doing, there are ways that you can do that. So this is a typical 2020 screen. Hopefully it's not too typical. It's really messy. There are a lot of dimensions that don't need to be there. But certainly if somebody took a screenshot of this, they'd be able to go into any kitchen cabinet shop and get a quote. That would be really easy to do. And then you have the dimensions that are there, and then the cabinet nomenclature. And then of course 2020 makes it really handy and gives you a nice 12-inch grid so that you can look at it and maybe figure out some dimensions. So what can you do about that? Well, 2020 gives you the ability to change all of those aspects, and it's actually quite easy to do. You can I'm going to go back to the previous one. Sorry. So you can work with just simple boxes, and that makes it easier to read all the nomenclature. But you can turn on 3D so that your cabinet fronts are in 3D, your cabinet tops are in 3D. Still a little bit interesting to look at, but you're not seeing dimensions, you're not seeing nomenclature, and you can also turn off the grid on the back of the yeah, on the screen background. Sorry, got a little bit distracted. So you can turn these things off by going into your display settings. And display settings, you right click on your work zone. And I know that Pro Kitchen and some of the other, I know that Chief Architect, all have the ability to turn all of these things off and on. 2020 is my wheelhouse, so this is why I'm showing you this. But you can right click and click on display settings, and then you can change some display settings. So if you highlight your items that you want to hide, then you can click on your label and uncheck the checkbox. And then that way, that will turn off all of your nomenclature for everything that is on the screen. And then the same goes for dimensions. You can turn off your auto dimensions by unchecking the box. It's the next tab over from items. And then that way you can have all of the dimensions off. And then I didn't do a screenshot of it, but the work area is where you find the grid. You can click on there, and then you have the ability to turn off the grid. So those are certain things that you can do for that. So another thing that you can do is you can do what I call show just the pretty. And what I mean by that is, so again, software packages like 2020 give you the ability to have the rendering window in a separate spot. So if you want to be able to move around your software and make changes, and you don't want people to take screenshots at all, then you can simply put your rendering window on a separate screen. Now, this works ideally if you have two screens. I happen to have two screens in my setup, but this also works if you plug a laptop into a TV or a monitor. You can also get that second screen functionality. Now, this is Zoom's share window, and you can select which screen, not only which screen, but which program that you're sharing at any given moment. So if you have an Excel spreadsheet, you can share just that. If you have a PowerPoint, which I'll get into in a couple minutes, you can share just that. But here you can share just screen 2, which is the screen that has just the rendering window on it. So screen 1 would have, of course, it has my picture over it, but you can see 2020 behind it. Screen 1 has the 2020 on it, so that you can be moving around and doing design things, while on screen 2, all it's doing is it's showing real time your rendering window. Now, to be fair, with a program like 2020, you have to have a computer robust enough to be able to have that have that refreshing in the background the entire time. But I think, with a modern computer, that's something that's not really difficult to do.
You know these guys on the right hand side?
So these are
Yeah, that's Doug Brenner. This guy is the people that he's the guy that they hired.
so the just gonna okay, I muted them, guys. Sorry, folks. So this is what you would see on screen 2, is just the rendering window. So as I make changes over in my main window, you would see what's happening in real time. So if you wanted to change the countertops, and this happens to be a fairly choppy picture. Took a picture of it early in the render, but so I'm not bad at rendering, so don't think that. But if you want to change the color of the countertop, of the cabinets, of the floor, you can do that while the customer is just looking at this screen. So, just a word about renders. There are certain things that you can do even with a rendering, especially if somebody brings your renderings to another dealer with pictures of their space. They can still come up with, like I said earlier, there's really no way of protecting yourself 100% from somebody taking your design work. But these are steps that definitely make it less likely that they would do that. So the last,
You don't recommend putting in a wrong size cabinet then, just to mess up everybody?
actually, that's actually something I thought of, or just something different, doing something that's harder to do when you're doing it live, but that's definitely something that is, it's not a bad idea, simply because, if they go to execute anything, you want to do anything you can to stop them from executing your design. And so sabotage, which would be that, that's what it would be. Sabotage is definitely a viable alternative for sure. But when you're doing it,
Sabotage.
so when you're doing it live online, it makes it a little bit less necessary to do things like that, especially if you're able to do these things. So the slide presentation, whether it be PowerPoint or Google Slides, this is Google sorry, this is PowerPoint. PowerPoint, if you have Office, great, but if you don't have Office, Google, the whole Google suite is a great way of doing things that is free, quite honestly. And you don't necessarily have to make the investment in Microsoft Office. This is my presentation that I'm doing right now in PowerPoint, and this is it in Google Sheets. So Google Sheets does probably 80 to 90% of what PowerPoint does, but they're both very powerful. So you can go into these slides and you can make changes. You can put in arrows. You can put in labels. You can actually add animations, which some of what I've been doing here are animations, and you can make them interesting, and you can make them static so that there's no way of them getting anything from your design. They're just getting pictures. And if they take pictures of just this, that's not really the end of the world. Like I said, they can get it from anywhere. But you can also use tools like the 2020 drawing layout tool to create really nice presentations. Like this comes from the 2020 design layout tool. This is from a friend of mine, Bill Zielinski. He let me use a few of these because he uses this extensively. And you can do some really neat things like a perspective with some breakouts of some of the features that are in that design. You can put, your logo, you can put the customer's name, you can put all kinds of design notes, and then these can be brought directly into a PowerPoint or a Google Slides presentation without much trouble at all. So you can do, if you have just simple, he does a lot of builder stuff. So you see a lot of laminate countertops and, he does everything very quickly. But if you have a little bit more, and you can do things like show the different door styles and what have you. But if you do things that are, if you have, a little bit more time, you can get a little bit more detailed. You can do what you'd call mood boards, where you show the door style and the color, the hardware selection, and just some perspectives. These are just some examples. And it's a great way of doing it. Even before we got to this point where we were presenting online, this was one of my favorite ways of presenting. Just having everything in one sheet and making it simple to look at, and you can, when you're presenting, you can sit and you can talk about all of the different features without ever going into your design software or the design itself. Also, a large percentage of your design meeting can be discussing product, none of which is really hurting your design, the ownership of your design, especially now with most of the websites have the ability, cabinet websites have the ability to show the doors in different colors and show different door styles and fixtures and all those sorts of things. Another thing that you can do is just show perspectives. Just save some perspectives from your design software and put those into a presentation. Honestly, you don't even really need to do a presentation in order to do this. You can do just the pictures, and you can just show them inside Windows, just in a Windows type of environment. So,
Hey, Colin, we've got a question about when you're showing this, do you have to resize your image to like instead of 8.5 by 11, but 11 by 14 or something to make that work? Or is there something special that you have to do?
Not really. You can do it. You can create the image in just about any size or shape, because especially if you're using a tool like PowerPoint or Google Sheets, you have the ability to crop and resize them right within that. And I'd say that's probably the most valuable skill, is learning how to crop and resize these pictures inside of something like PowerPoint, because that way you are making, if you make it a certain size and shape and then you start just resizing it, it might look squished in one direction or the other. But cropping it is really where it comes into play. I had to, when I put this together, I had to crop out a little bit over here, and I cropped out a little bit over on this side in order to get it to fit right. So you don't necessarily have to do it a particular size or shape, because you can resize it and crop it to the dimensions that you want right inside your app. So I'm pretty much at the end of what I have prepared, but Doug or Ray, do you have anything to add?
Oops, sorry, I was talking with my mute button on. I think that this is really important for the designers going forward. I think that things are going to change dramatically in many, many ways for how we do kitchen designs. And I think that we need to look at how we present today, if it's face-to-face, if it's in the office, or if we could do preliminary designs this way until we get down to the final phase, that you're able to work much more efficiently. it's been interesting with the dealers that we have who have been still very active. They are saying they are getting work done much more efficiently, that they're not getting the people disturbing them, but they're still getting people to come in through making contacts of old customers, making contacts of lost jobs that they found out that the people never bought a kitchen, so they're making phone calls of that and chasing down leads, but they're able to really get into their design work a little bit better to go to the next level, and it's been very, very effective in that way.
And I think too that now that people are, Zoom in many markets, many segments was already very popular, but there was a large percentage of the population that had never heard of it. I would say that there's a much larger percentage of the population that's heard of it now. And even when things do go back to quote unquote normal, I think that people will be using it more on a regular basis simply because they now know what it is, know what it does, and what it can do. And I think that it makes it much more efficient. Think about how much time we spend driving from point A to point B in order to do anything. And think about, you can get into things like carbon footprint and what have you. But, if it can be done remotely, why not? Why not do it remotely? And I think people will find coming through this that it's not as scary as they once thought. And now they can do more of this that remotely. Before we went totally live, we were having a conversation with my friend Diane, and we were talking about the fact that, why not have somebody on FaceTime or on Skype or on a Zoom call between two portable devices? Why not have them go and do the measurements live with you while you're walking them through it? You can take people through every single dimension that you need in an existing space in order to get the preliminaries. But you're probably getting, compare that to somebody bringing in their dimensions on a cocktail napkin. You probably are 60 to 75% accurate when somebody does something like that. If you're doing it remotely with them, which takes the same amount of time, the same amount of energy, but less paper, then you're actually getting probably closer to 95% accuracy. You still obviously want to go out and get your own tape measure on everything in order to get the dimensions right, to make sure that you're ordering everything correctly. But I think that allows us to be more efficient and more accurate when we're doing quoting, so that now the disclaimers don't have to be as great when we're quoting something. So I think people are going to find that much more of the process that we spend our time and energy and gas driving places, we won't have to as much. And I think that's a good thing.
Colin, I want to add something to that, because I fully agree with everything that you said, but there's one other key point. You're getting the customer involved in the design process.
Exactly.
They are investing time with you, whether it's
That's right.
remotely today or it's remotely 3 months from now. When they're in their house, they're talking about themselves. They're talking about, oh, I hate this old lazy Susan, or I don't like this, I want a bigger window, or whatever it is. And you're engaging them almost like a face-to-face in-home meeting, but they're spending the time very efficiently. You didn't have to go to the house, and you're getting this information, and now you're part of it. You're a key part of their process. They may be much less likely to go to the next guy who's not doing the same thing, who's not having the same level of involvement.
Exactly. And I think that everything from, being able to stop 2 minutes before your preliminary design meeting, rather than stopping 45 minutes before, and then hopping in the car, and then, opening the GPS, and then getting to the job site, 2 minutes before your Zoom call or your FaceTime, you get yourself prepared, you go on and you do this whole meeting. That's, there are some people that will never embrace the video calling world, and that's fine. But I think that, as I said earlier, there are people that didn't really know it existed that will embrace it, and it will make everybody's lives much easier. And as you said, somebody's calling you right on time for your design appointment. You're interactive. They're holding the tape measure. They're seeing, they're now touching and feeling everything, and they understand how accurate things need to be and why they need to be accurate. They're understanding right at the point of first contact. So when you have when you have a lead that comes in from Facebook or from Instagram or from your website, then you're getting some face-to-face interaction early on without having to actually meet in person.
And let's also talk about samples and things. I mean, you talked earlier about many manufacturers having the ability to change colors of doors and things for people, and that's true. There's also a lot of manufacturers that are happy to send out, you can order a color chip or 2 color chips or 5 color chips and a door sample, and now send it directly to them, so that
Right.
you're still not having to go directly to their homes during this period of time, but certainly in the future. But now you're really getting people to buy into this thing.
Exactly. And you're
And
getting
I know
you're
when,
getting a hybrid of the online, what are strictly online things and the brick and mortar. You're getting a hybrid, so you get the benefits of both, and I think everybody wins.
how many people have sold kitchens that are on this call, and they've shown them a door sample in one color, but it's not their color, and a small color chip in the other color that's not their, that is their color, and said, okay, you just have to envision this door, but except it has a 5-piece drawer head, and it has this color, and it's this color. And by the way, I only have it in maple, and you wanted it in cherry, so it's not quite. And
Right.
and now you can get exactly what you want to that customer. Granted, it may be a few days, but for them, it's like opening a Christmas present.
Right.
So it becomes much more valuable. Any comments from the dealers as far as any other ideas? Anything that you'd like to share with us? We're giving this away, so we're hoping that you'll share some of your secrets with everybody. There's, you folks who are on this call are 100% better than the folks who are sitting at home not doing anything. And so that's remember that when you going forward. Any ideas? Any thoughts?
I just did a presentation yesterday, PowerPoint, and I did perspectives and I did color. I did send it to him after the meeting on PDF. It doesn't have dimensions or anything. Do you think it's okay to send that out to the customer? The the mood boards or whatever that you create?
I think that it certainly couldn't hurt. I mean, again, if somebody has a perspective in their hands, seeing it on the screen is one thing. Then they have to print it out or have to email it to somebody else. But if they have it in their hand, it's easier to hand to somebody. So, I've been guilty of taking a perspective that somebody brought from a competitor and sort of extrapolating out of it what the design is, and then presenting them with a price. So I know that it's possible. I know that
Right.
you can do that, and you might only be 85 to 90% accurate, but it's definitely
It's more just them copying, the finishes and how you're doing it. But he
right.
had more people on his team, I think, that he has to discuss it with.
Right.
So it's like, if I just show it to him and no one else,
Right. And that's when when you've gone that extra step and you've put together the mood boards, then you're getting more into the paid design end of things. Even if you're in a model that doesn't have that component, maybe it's time to add that component. Maybe it's time to just come up with I'd be happy to send you this mood board with all these samples on it, but at this point I would need some sort of commitment from you. So that might be the time to incorporate that sort of thing into it, so that they have some
Right.
skin in the game. They have no skin in the game up to that point typically.
I know.
So it's I mean that's a universal
I know.
that's a universal issue for all of us, isn't it? When I've spent most of my career in the model where the free design model, and that's always tricky, and that's really where this
Well, that's why I didn't do
discussion
floor
comes
plan,
in.
no dimensions, but You know, they had architectural plans, so they already had the dimensions, you know.
Sure.
So-
Yeah. So
We'll see. But I was a little skeptical to send it, and he asked for it, and I did. So
right.
Darby,
Yeah.
we'd like a report, Darby, on how that works out for you, if you could.
yeah, well, it's a developer, and he wanted all these things, and he asked me to price it a certain way, and now he's like, oh, and he told me it's okay to go over his budget, but now he's like, that's a lot over my budget. So I'm still reworking it for him, but who knows if he'll commit. But I'm trying to hold him, you know. He's got two, so
Yeah.
you never know.
And I think when it gets to that point, you don't have to ask them for $2,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ask them for 200. Just say, you know, this is just something that, you know, if you make off with my samples, you know, it takes some of my time. You know, I mean, it's all about rapport building and trust building.
Right.
And, you know, that's probably a point where you have to get uncomfortable a little bit, go outside your comfort zone and have that yucky conversation. I call those yucky conversations.
Right.
But
Colin, I think this is a good tool to use as a closing model, because, you know, we're all in the business of selling boxes, and we don't need practice in designing kitchens.
right.
But I think this is a good tool to use to move the customer along and get them to close.
Sure.
Because if they're not interested, they're not willing to invest, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you know you got the job?
Exactly. And I think that's why this is a great model, because excuse me, or even if you're in person doing a PowerPoint presentation, you're not handing them anything. You're just showing them pictures. So they'd have to go into their memory to try and reconstruct it. And of course, they don't know what we know, so it'd be impossible for them to do. And this is the same model, where you're just showing them stuff that they could you know, as long as they're not recording it. I mean, I suppose that you could, if you were clever enough, if a client were clever enough, they could record the script and then, you know, bring it to somebody else and play it for them. But, you know, that's much less likely to happen in something like this. And you're right, Doug, this is the perfect time to ask for the sale. If not the sale, just say, okay, well, you know, after a few questions, you know, what do you think? Do you like the design? Do you like this aspect? Do you like that aspect? Great. Why don't we do a preliminary agreement where you have to give me $250? And then that'll allow us to take the next step and do the revisions. And then the next Zoom meeting can be the revisions. Then you know that they are at least invested in it enough that they would give you a small deposit and not, you know, not just take your designs and go somewhere else.
We've been working with a designer who we've had years of experience with, and who has about a 95% close ratio, and she charges a lot of money for a pre-meeting. And she does a first preliminary meeting, and then she gets several thousands of dollars to go forward with the design.
Mm-hmm.
And she closes just about everybody. And the interesting part about it is we have her aligned to do one of these presentations in the coming weeks, to do collecting a design fee, if you will. So that's going to be a very big thing, I think, that she says she'd rather deal with half as many customers, but close every one, because she doesn't practice doing kitchen design. So it's very, very important to look at that.
That's a great way of putting it, Doug and Ray. And that's, you know, we're not in this to practice doing designing. I had a lot of practice, so I'm really good at it. But yeah, it's, you know, we don't need the practice. We need to make the sales, and, you know, that helps us go the next step.
I got a question. What about when you do a design and you're not installing it, and they need the prints or whatever for the electrician and for the plumber and this and that? I have this happen a lot. I submit them maybe some prints, or with or without measurements. Next thing you know, I see pictures on Facebook or someone, they already have their kitchen installed. I designed it. It's the same design I did, but you know,
Yeah.
they was pressuring me for, you know, prints because of their plumber and electrician and so forth. And it's happened a bunch. I mean, what would you suggest to do with that?
Yeah, and that's the and unfortunately that's the time, you know, that's the time where you have to press pause and have the yucky conversation. And you know, it's tough. It's, I think once you've done it once, it gets easier. And then the next time it gets easier, and the next time it gets easier. And you know, contractors just in general tend to be very high strung, very high, very, you know, very high powered. And, you know, they're just like, oh, well, you know, just send it to me. And, you know, then they do it in a text, they do it in a quick email. And it's, you know, you have the cookie. So if they want the cookie, they have to pony up. And again, even if it's just a small thing, and say, well, you know, you don't have to make a deposit on the cabinets because we don't have a final quote yet, but I do need a deposit to release the plans. And you know, it's you just have to kind of draw the line in the sand. And trust me, to this day, I've been doing this 23 years. I still have a hard time asking for that money. It's a little easier than it was, but you know, you just have to do it.
The big thing I think that we're seeing, Colin, is that with the design retainer, deposit, whatever you call it, I mean, you tell people about this going in. I mean, you're talking about why do the design work before you get something, at least something, a stipend for it, that you're not doing it for nothing, because you've got other customers who are willing to work with you, that if they're not willing to pay a little bit, then let them go over to the blue and orange boxes and get free designs over there.
Yeah, but I think the challenge that Brandon is alluding to is these are contractors that you're hoping to get repeat business from, but unfortunately, some of them will still have a couple of cabinet places on their vendor list. So you know, there's that danger, there's that tipping point where you say, okay, do I risk ticking them off by saying I would like a deposit before I give them plans because the electrician's sitting there and, you know, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, the electrician wants to get started? That's a difficult conversation to have from somebody that you're going to hope to get repeat business from. But by the same token, you have to sort of weigh risk with a reward. If you think that there's a 50-50 chance or better that they're going to take those plans somewhere else, then that's the time to start having those difficult conversations and saying, you know, it's all about how you present it. Say, yep, I will absolutely get those plans into your electrician's hands. I'll drive them over there myself, but why don't you give me a credit card? We'll put a $250 deposit down so that we can get this, you know, use something like, so we can get it on the schedule, so we can get it, you know, so we can get the ball rolling. You know, it's all about how you word it and how you turn it to make sure that you're being protected.
If he's using the electrician, if he wants to send your plans to the electrician, there's a darn good chance that he likes your plan. So that's the important part about this, is that if he's doing that much, then it becomes less of a problem.
Right. But there's always, like what happened there's always the chance that they will intercept it and go, okay, you know, I'm going to see if I can save $2,000 or whatever. And then they'll take that plan and they'll bring it to one of the box stores.
Exactly what they're doing.
So well, any other questions? Anyone else that has something that we love to get interface with folks? We're going to be doing another one of these on Thursday. That is going to talk about. We're going to talk about upping the design level, right, Colin? It's going to be
yes.
Presentation.
Yeah, that's getting a little bit more into my wheelhouse, the stuff that I really enjoy.
So that's I think that's going to be important for us to all realize.
I have another question for the group in general. I mean, I have projects right now that the contractors aren't going forward because of the social distancing. So I have like orders ready to place that they can
place the orders.
Yeah, but
Place
But it
the
hasn't
orders.
been, some of the things haven't been framed and the client's not committing and not paying the deposit, like everybody's just,
They're in a holding pattern. You're
everybody's
not the
like
only
on hold.
one.
Yeah, so it's
You're
like,
not the only one. There's lots of it.
So how long is does the, like for Woodland, how long do they hold the design for or the order for?
yeah. if you put
In
the
other
order
words,
in.
is it 30 days or?
Well, if you're just wanting to get the design in and get all the details done and make sure that you're telling them not to start construction because we can't store it, you're brilliant to do that, because frankly, if we then know what the backlog is going to be, because when this breaks open, it is going to be Katie bar the door. There's going to be a ton of people who've been sitting in their houses for 3, 4, 5, however many weeks this goes on, and they are not happy with their kitchen, and they've been looking at it. And let's face it, it's the same person who was going to take a cruise. They're not going to spend the money on the cruise. They're not going to take a flight to Europe, not this year at least.
Mhm.
And people are going to invest money in their homes because that's a big return on investment. And that's where we have to look. Hopefully they're not going to go out and spend money on other things, because who's your competition today? Is it the other cabinet dealer? I don't think so. I think your competition is the furniture companies. I think your competition is the car dealerships, people offering trips and cruises and flights, and maybe the pool in the backyard that doesn't give you much of a return on investment, but a new kitchen sure does. So, or a bathroom.
Well, I have an interesting comment, Ray, for you that a customer made to me the other day. I had been working with this customer about a year ago, and she finally came back, and she's like, I said, well, why did you come back? I just was curious. She goes, you're the only one working. So
Yeah.
that was nice to hear.
And Ray, what in looking at what's going on, the question came up, place the orders. There are several manufacturers that are out there that have actually been forced to shut down due to state regulations. And I think what you're going to see when we get through this, and we will get through this, is there's going to be a pent-up of demand, and the orders are going to start rushing in. And then what's going to happen is the manufacturers are going to get into a backlog, and you will see lead times be pushed out. So if there's a way of conveying to your customers now that, look, let's keep going with your project. My gosh, the stock market has been up for the last 3 days. You're starting to see a resurgence in the economy, and hopefully that'll continue. But if they get the order in now, the manufacturers will have the product. So when we get out of this and it's time to move forward, the product is here, people are back to work, and you're ready to go. You won't have a wait period.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point. Yeah. I have a couple of people that are in that boat, and they're in some of the manufacturers that have had lead times extend already. So that's just going to continue once this is over, and they're going to find out that they're not going to be able to do their project until, later in the summer, or, a couple of them are new construction, and it will delay things. So it's definitely a good idea to have those conversations now and just remind people that this is just a bump in the road and things are on pause. And it's there's a dam, and the lake is filling up behind the dam. And once that dam breaks, it's just gonna be a deluge. So definitely keep working through this if you've already got something going on, and use these techniques to use these tools, use Zoom and FaceTime, and use all of these so that I'm a big proponent of, I don't like talking on the telephone because I can't see the other person's expressions. I like seeing body language. I like seeing facial expressions, and you get that with this type of conversation. So, use those tools to continue to communicate, not just present, and you will find that you're able to continue the relationship even at a distance.
Very good. I want to leave everybody with a little bit of a thought. Spending a lot of time with the dog and I out in the woods, and so we kind of come up with some ideas. But I wrote this down this morning, and to our dealers, we have been thrilled with the number of dealers who continue to work and look for ways to expand their business. One thing for sure, the kitchen and bath business is never going to be the same. Those of us who are going to move forward and prosper had better put on our thinking hats and look to the future to see how this is all going to shake out. If you remember back in 1982, does anybody remember what happened in 82? It was the Tylenol scare. Remember that?
Yeah.
And in 80, some of you weren't born, but in 82, hit the Tylenol scare, and they changed the way they packaged over-the-counter medicines forever, right? We had this, everyone was afraid to take Tylenol. Today, there's millions of people in the US today that are working from home. And what you're going to see is, I think, and they're efficient, they're effective, they're actually producing work from home. And I think that that's going to change the way a lot of things happen here in the country. You're going to stop seeing some giant office buildings with 1,000 cubicles in them. And Jake from State Farm is going to be working from home instead of wearing his khakis, white shirt, and red sweater. So owners and managers are going to realize that they can have happy, productive employees instead of they're working from home in a cubicle. So when those people are also looking at, they can save money, they're not spending 90 minutes a day commuting or more, childcare, even clothing. I mean, you're just as effective in working in, shorts and a t-shirt or your PJs in many cases than you are having to get dressed up to go to work. So take a hard look. This is just my theory, but people are going to invest in a new kitchen and bath because they're spending more time at home, and it's a great investment. But look at one other thing. People are going to be looking for home offices. And I wanted to point that out only because they're going to want something more than metal leg tables and something that is, when you look at what the current home office business is, it's Formica with a couple of metal leg tables and file cabinets. Think about something that's cross-functional in their homes. Think about where that might go. I'm just predicting that there might be a big resurgence in that, and there's a chance to go after some people with another room that we may or may not have been going to. We're not talking about the big desk in the library, but maybe it's in the corner of a guest room or in the corner of the family room someplace, that they want something that's more attractive than that, than a desk and a file cabinet. So just an idea, just a thought. Pass that along, free advice that is worth exactly what you paid for. We'll be doing this again on Thursday with Colin. If you were not on the mailing list, please send us your email to info@ravereps.com, and we'll put you on the mailing list. We appreciate those of you who work with us, and those of you who are going to come to work with us because of this. So we thank you all for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all on Thursday.
I just put that in the chat, Ray, so to everybody, so that they have that email address in writing. So
thank you, Colin.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Good seeing you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
It's good to see you, Colin.
Good to see you too, Diane. Bye, Louise. Bye, Darby.
Thanks, Colin.
Welcome.
Join his Facebook group. It's the best.
Thanks.